thank you very much to Challenger for providing the replay. Subscribe to me and them for more. Ladies and gentlemen, we are jumping into the rift with Heidi Onibushi. Faker in the mid lane, running Unsealed Spellbook. Perfect timing, Biscuit Delivery, Time Warp, Tonic, Bone Plating, Overgrowth, Attack Speed, and Double Magic Resist. And you can already see something is weird. Swain isn't he played a little bit differently usually. You will see there is a very special build hiding on screen as Faker is spawning in on the blue side team with an R in the top lane and a Hecarim in the jungle, facing off against Graves in the top lane. Graves and R matchup. Very interesting matchup. It's always a little unreliable on who's going to get ahead, but most likely the Gnar. As Viego is in the jungle and he is jungling for an Azir mid lane. Azir is a very scary man. And in the bottom, you can find a T1 Gumayushi with a Pike support, facing off against Senna and Small Shampoo, who I believe might be Nemesis. Not 100% sure. Don't know, don't care. As Faker is going to start off in the mid lane with a very interesting build here that we're going to see. We'll talk about it once it comes up. Obviously, for now, the lane is heavily favored for the Azir. Not much you can do as Faker except try to obtain enough farm, as we see him miss some farm. Obviously, the heal obviously is huge for sustain in the mid lane, especially if you're being poked by Azir, because we have clean CSing happening. Not so clean anymore. Does hit that CS, but the Azir heavily being pressured by the horse, who now goes back into his jungle and is going to heal up mana and health by the second, because jungle nowadays is not a difficult lane anymore. At least the jungling part, right? The PvP part is always going to be similarly difficult as the bot lane fiesta is unfolding. If you haven't watched the game from T1 Gumayushi's perspective, it is the first cast aired on this channel. Gumayushi absolutely demolishing that bot lane, but I wanted to have a look at the Swain build here. And so if you've seen that cast, you unfortunately already know how the game is going to end. I do as well in this situation. Usually I try to obviously keep spoilers to a minimal when watching a game, so I can cast it as freely as possible. But in this one, unfortunately, we already know which way it's going to go. And that way is... well, let's say it's favoring Faker. Not least because of his build. Faker is out of mana. And now the question is, what do we do with this lane? One is out of mana, one is out of health. In this situation, the Azir wins, as he will get a favorable recall, and Faker has a lot of foresight, was already working on the minions, working on making them CSable, as we will pull in the Azir, heal a little bit, stand outside the soldier's range, and try to CS as well as we can, given the very limited amount of resources. And you can see how one downside of this matchup is that Faker always has to overextend and take some damage to be able to hit his E, or at least gamble hitting his E, which is a situation Swain doesn't like. So we're going to recall into a Bendel Glass Mirror, instantly TPing back with not fully regenerated resources, but that is totally fine as we do save some CS. We're going to walk in front so the turret doesn't execute any of the minions, doesn't steal any farm from us, doesn't take our gold or school lunchbox. Now we're going to push in the wave as we consciously try to ignore the mayhem that is unfolding in the bottom here. Going to perfectly CS this wave. And Azir isn't that far ahead, which is a W in my opinion. But I question whether or not Faker should conserve his mana just a little bit, because we are in a dire need of mana here, being down 75% of our mana already, with a constantly shoving Azir in the mid lane, expending even more mana, and I wonder what his plan is. Azir deciding to slow push that wave. Faker makes the decision, and I think that is the correct one, to finally go back and restore his mana. I think that could have happened a little bit earlier. He already would be back, wouldn't miss as many minions, but it is what it is. And the mana has been acquired. Still hasn't regenerated all of his mana. Bendel Glass Mirror does give a little bit of mana, but it doesn't nearly give as much mana as something like the Lost Chapter, which Azir isn't running either, because Azir has opted to go for an Oblivion Orb to cut down on that healing. So Faker now has to play a little bit of a mini game of thinking, okay, did Azir hit me? Yes, he did. Should I pull him in and take reduced healing, or should I wait with my E? But the problem, trying to hit your E on an Azir almost always requires you to take some damage, as Azir doesn't really have to expend any resources to poke, but Faker has to expend resources to farm, to live, to poke, to do anything. So, unfortunate situation. We walked down just for a W. I think that we could have used that time, we could have used to shove out the mid lane and create a little bit of a lead for ourselves as we move forward and clap back onto the Azir a little bit, punish the mistake that Azir made by positioning his Qs the way he did, because that was not optimal. The soldiers were too far behind the Swain, creating an opening for Swain to trade back a little bit. And so Swain now has decent mana again, picking up the honey fruit. The E won't connect, unfortunately, but he is not falling too far behind in CS, and this is the most important thing, right? For something like the Swain being very strong in, oh my god, what a beautiful Hecarim ult, but the Azir still has a flash available. But we're starting to make a difference here. As Faker manages to blow the flash of the enemy, but unfortunately not enough mana is available to cast all of our spells. And the ultimate has been cast too early, and so Viego will pick up a kill. And the situation is unfolding in favor of the red team, sporting the Guma, the god. And Faker dodging out on that Q with a beautiful mid lane movement. Mid laners always have the most crisp movement. I mean, you better do if, you know, all your lane is dodging skill shots a lot of the time. Now, the farm difference has increased by quite a bit. Very unfortunate situation, but we get a beautiful recall cancel as the Swain here. Very good. Again, We're going to try to push in the lane, but to be honest, there isn't really much going on. I suspect that Faker is trying to collect enough money to be able to fully build his mandate. That would be the only reason for him making the mistake of not recalling here, in my opinion. But who knows? Okay, doesn't hit that CS. Does cancel the Azir, however. And now, all of a sudden, the lane is in a Swain favor. Swain joining his team with absolutely no mana. I don't understand why we're making the decisions we're making. Right, we're trying to have Azir recall here so we can finally... Nope, we're still cancelling Azir, prolonging the lane. Obviously, every second, right, that we and Azir are out of mana is in our favor, as we would be losing the lane if Azir was ahead. And so trading like that always makes sense for someone like the Swain. Now the mandate has been acquired, just as I suspected, and now we can start doing stuff. And the interesting build is already happening, as we're going to, in the next cast, we're going to have a look at a very different Swain build. Running a more conventional Swain build, not like this one. And maybe we can compare both of them a little bit and see how they fare. Now the idea obviously is that your E can proc the mandate. Later on you get Rylai's, so every auto attack, every Q and every drain is going to proc the mandate. And so a little bit in the tradition of Victor, mandate does give a good amount of value. But, you know, it's just a little bit of a try at some tech. And what is there to lose? You are only fighting the best AD carry in the world right now. As the mandate value is already coming through. I wish we could have a look at exactly how much. But Guma is showing up and Faker just says, "My boy, what is that damage?" As Guma is going to take down the center. And yes, the difference has arrived in the mid lane. And it's been into access in front of the turret. Now under the turret, ready to dive. Scary situation. Question mark pings on the Seraphine. Because in a small champion pool, Seraphine is obviously not necessarily the champion that we have practiced enough. And so our R's are going to be missed. Now obviously, the big sinner here is the center. Going to an 8 already in comparison to that 0-2 as the Seraphine, who was clearly holding on a little bit more. As Guma wants to show Faker who's boss, but Faker has another thing to say about it, as he does end up going down, but not without blowing some flashes and making it hard for the enemy team. Senna, on the other hand, just donating more gold. She's not making it hard at all. Someone could ask for the PayPal. Guma Yushi obviously interested in showing his, you know, boss and mid laner. Let's be honest. His boss and mid laner, that he is indeed a good player. Maybe even the better player. Maybe he PayPal'd that Seraphine. But obviously tinfoil hats aside, we're now moving into the mid game as the AD carry and the bot lane have taken over the mid lane. Swain has been relegated to the top lane together with the Azir. Azir clearing out a poorly placed Herald. What exactly? Yeah, I was thinking something like that. That is going to be a flash out of the Viego, and Azir is going down with a beautiful bait by the Hecarim. I would have not picked up on that. Makes a lot of sense. Hecarim pretending that Swain is somewhere else as the W is going to come through. Draven currently only spinning 1x, but that won't stop him from executing the Swain at 50% HP because his champion makes a lot of sense. Yep, the Gnar in the Graves. Actually, slightly being in favor of Graves-ish type deal. I would say that actually this is a little bit of a factor of the team difference though. Talking about team difference, Senna at this point going 2 and 11. There's no doubt that Gumayushi is gapping the Senna. But will he gap the Seraphine? To be honest, right now we can't really tell because it depends on the mid game and late game ultimates. As a comp like the Draven, especially with heal, a very uncharacteristic mistake in my opinion. Running heal into a Seraphine. Questionable choice. We still also don't see a QSS on the Draven, but it also isn't required yet. But you know, we're reaching that point where it might be. I think it becomes very important to acquire it pretty soon. Infinity Edge has been acquired as well on the AD carry, and so we have 4 items on an AD carry, while Mr. Swain is still on his second. Still working on the second item. It is not looking good. We're trying to go for that Zonya, obviously, right? So we can run in, tank a little bit, live a little bit, because nothing will make you tanky enough to tank Draven Axis, except, well, invulnerability. Still able to proc the mandate, and so, at least later on. So Azir is creating a little bit of an opening for the enemy team here. As Faker just ran top lane just to collect a soul, and now is back on his way back to the bot lane. We can talk about the bonus of him not overextending here, but let's be honest, it seems like a little bit of a questionable call, in my opinion. As we see, Draven is on his way to the top lane, and so we better keep our hands off that. Probably the best to not make plays around the Draven right now. This Draven is a little bit of an issue. Better opening would be the Azir, who isn't having the time of his life, isn't building the build of his life. And just like Faker's E here, I think he missed the mark. He missed the mark a little bit. This Faker is going to push down the turret, ignoring the fact that the base is going to get sieged. Because let's be honest, we blame Gnar. And Mr. Gnar is teleporting. Or base turret. Helm's Clump indeed. Trying to close down that base and keep it secured. Lock it away from the man with the impressive moustache. So we're going to push down a turret. Well, if we can. Graves says, if I have anything to say about it, you will not. But I think that the Swain base damage is quite scary. As we are going down. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is a death for Gumayushi. An absolutely useless teleport on Swain. We're a bit late to the party here. No idea what exactly is going on. He did collect a couple of souls, but that is about it. Alright. Azir showing that he is indeed able to play his champion a little bit. But is that going to be enough in Korean high elo? Probably not, as the Draven is still an absolute menace. And still not building QSS. For whatever unholy reason, there still is no QSS nor cleanse from Gumayushi. Very disappointing. Faker coming in with the stopwatch. Turned into Zhonya's, finally. Good save, huh? And we are going to be able to go golden during the team fights, which is obviously very good. There is no TP available, as we just blew it. Now it's going to pick up the bounty on the turret that we did collect. And we're going to move back and try to defend our base, as Azir did die once again, as he so loves to do. Now the question is, does Senna turn this Viego into similarly of an Inter as this Senna, or not? Right now, no. Senna is always one of these champions that if she falls behind, she does so quite a bit. Currently going for the 313. Straight heading for that 320 power spike. As we're going to stop that base. And Swain is quite tanky, but it is nothing compared to Gumayushi's damage. He didn't even go golden. And so, the fight is finding an abrupt end. As Nara is taking down another turret and another bounty. And Hecarim is probably going to live here, as the Senna is available. Hitting that stun. Now, Senna, on the other hand, is dead. Nazir being useful as ever. Emoting in base instead of taking the inhibitor. Which, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to be that guy, but this Azir, bit of a PayPal angle, okay? Bit of a PayPal angle. But needless to say, the game is definitely looking dire. 170 farm on our protagonist here against that 200 farm of the Azir. Against 228 farm of Gumayushi. So it's not looking good, but we have a good distribution of damage in our team here. And Azir, as always, Azir's not interested in winning this game. He wants to have fun. He's playing for fun. He's emoting. He's dancing. He's having the time of his life. While Guma over here is back. It's starting to hurt a little bit, because between all the catch potential that is available for Swain, for the Seraphine, for the Senna, for the Hecarim, there is actually quite a bit that he has to watch out for, as we might find ourselves in a good situation here. Flash by Senna, dodging out that pike ult, as Mr. Swain leaves. Bit of a bystander in this entire game, as the beautiful Seraphine Senna Hecarim ult takes down Gumayushi once more. Just as Faker. POV, you are the mid laner, and you have to clear the minion wave. Is taking down minions. No, Swain is rather good at this. Swain obviously has that recurring damage from his Q. I'm still not 100% sure about the unsealed spellbook. I think that the amount of damage that Conqueror does is really high, especially with a build that is reliant on base damage, the way this Swain build is. But maybe there's something that I'm missing. Obviously, having teleport available as well as ignite as well as exhaust is kind of cool, but I don't think it is. We don't have a TF here, you know. We don't have a TF here. It's Swain is a very, very fighting reliant champion, and he does have a certain amount of, I would say, baseline damage he needs to have in healing to be able to impact fights. So I'm not entirely sure. Randuin's Omen picked up on Senna. Now maybe she will be able to tank 3 Draven axes. Beautiful. Beautiful ultimate comes in, but Mr. Draven is still alive. The QSS has been acquired on the Draven, and we already see the difference it makes. Draven being able to flash and cleanse, but that also is no flash for the Draven. And the Swain did survive. Did a good job. I'm very impressed. As Draven's team is going to pick up another dragon for themselves. Infernal Soul will be acquired in a bit. 31 minutes is when we will have the Infernal Soul, but whether or not the game will still be going by that point is a question, as we lose a turret. A little bit of a blunder here by Faker, and generally Faker having a little bit of an off game in my opinion. Decision making not being on point here. Maybe we're chilling a little bit too hard in this game. But the Rylai's has been acquired, and now we have a build. Before the mandate, kind of questionable. This is also something that I see critical with this build, is it requires the Zhonya, and as all Swain builds do, it requires the Zhonya, and it requires Rylai, and it requires the mandate. Obviously, not every game you have a 14-4-11 AD carry on the enemy team that is also piloted by Guma Yushi. That happens in a rather low amount of games. But, so you might be able to delay the Zhonya to third item. Getting that Rylai, which is the combo, right? The Rylai and the mandate a little bit earlier, but still. Questionable build. And Mr. Faker is starting to run into the fights, not really die, as he picks up a kill on the Graves. And just like that, the enemy team has been cleaned up. Death timers, 31 minutes. Everyone is alive except the Pike. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you, this is the end in fire, and we shall all burn together. Watch the flames burn high into the night, falling out, Guma. Why didn't you buy fucking QSS earlier? God damn it. Well, and as you can see, sometimes you can go 14-5 and it still doesn't matter. Welcome to League of Legends. With that, I'm going to see you in another cast. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching and stay awesome.